Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Today, it's monitor review time, and this particular model I'm looking at today has been reasonably heavily requested by our Patreon members, as well as a few people via email. Not sure what was going on there. Anyway, it's the Pixio PX275H, a highly affordable semi-high refresh 1440p gaming monitor with a bit of wide gamut and HDR thrown into the mix. I was very impressed with the previous Pixio monitor I reviewed, so I was pretty keen to get this new release in my office for some testing. So let's run through the details. 27 inches in size, 2560 by 1440 resolution, and it uses a flat IPS panel. Maximum refresh rate is 95 Hz, minimum is 30 Hz, so we also get FreeSync with low frame rate compensation and great support with both AMD and NVIDIA GPUs. It's a wide gamut panel with 95% DCI-P3 coverage, and it's HDR ready, although there's no true HDR support here, as I'll get to later. The key feature here is the price of just $260 US through Amazon. This is basically the perfect price for these specs. We have entry-level 1440p 60Hz monitors sitting around $200 these days, and then you start seeing higher 144Hz refreshes at $300 in both curved and flat TN and VA options, with IPS variants often another step above in price tag. So what the Pixio PX275H is offering is really a unique middle ground between entry-level 1440p and true high refresh 1440p. Compared to the standard 1440p 144Hz $300 options, the only major compromise here is in the lower refresh rate of just 95 Hz. Unlike a lot of other budget 1440p displays, we're still getting a high quality IPS panel with great color support. It's positioned well for gamers that don't quite have the cash on hand for the $300 plus models, but still want to get into 1440p gaming without having to suffer through 60 Hz refresh rates or crappy TN displays. I can definitely see why this monitor in particular has generated a lot of buzz right now. Right out of the box, unfortunately, not a good start for the PX275H. My retail unit shipped with a set of bent legs, something I haven't encountered before and really surprised me considering the strength of the metal used and a lack of damage to the box. I believe this was simply a manufacturing issue that wasn't picked up in quality control, and not sure I really blame them too much given the issue is hard to spot at first glance. In fact, it wasn't until I was completing the review process that I noticed the issue. Anyway, sometimes you run into issues like this actually buying these products in the real world, which is why I've talked about it here. Pixio were quick to send out a replacement stand, so that should arrive soon, and luckily the monitor is still usable as it is right now. As I mentioned, I was surprised to see the stand come bent because it's made using strong, sturdy metal, and visually it looks quite good. Even with the bend, there's still very little wobble in the construction, although there's limited adjustability. Only tilt is supported. If you need to adjust the height or swivel it around, you'll want to buy a stand that's compatible with the VESA mount on the rear. Aside from the stand, the rest of the design is simple, effective, and in my opinion looks pretty good. Nothing crazy in terms of RGB lighting or gamer design elements, just a basic black plastic construction with a minimalist rear that gives most of the attention to the 27-inch screen on the front. Slim bezels, a few small logos, a moderately thin build, and that's about all worth mentioning. The one major omission is the directional toggle. Pixio are continuing to use a row of buttons along the bottom right edge, which makes the on-screen menu hard to navigate. There aren't a ton of features in the menu. Most of the options are for color and image controls, which are set and forget type stuff, but the HDR toggle and crosshair options are things you might want to toggle on and off from time to time. Let's talk about performance, starting with the refresh rate. 95 Hz is a little unusual. It's not a typical refresh rate we see, but it is notably higher than 60 Hz and even 75 Hz, which are the refresh rates that dominate budget 1440p offerings. To me, 95 Hz is noticeably smoother than either of those lower options, while 144 Hz is another step above. With that said, 95 Hz is a lot closer to 144 Hz than 60 Hz in terms of how smooth games feel, and really at around this mark you're getting many of the benefits that high refresh rates bring, just not to the level that your premium offerings deliver. The other huge benefit to having this monitor refresh at 95 Hz is proper low frame rate compensation support. Many 75 Hz and 60 Hz monitors, in fact most on the market, do not support LFC, which severely limits the usefulness of variable refresh rates. It can be quite jarring to jump in and out of the supported refresh rate window, but this isn't an issue whatsoever with the PX275H as it supports LFC, and that means the gaming experience is rock solid. Be sure to turn on FreeSync in the monitor settings though, it is disabled by default. Gaming performance is backed up by strong response times, falling right in the typical zone for an IPS display. I recorded a grey to grey average of 6.54 milliseconds using the middle response time setting, which offered the best balance between quick responses and minimal overshoot. This doesn't make it the outright fastest IPS I've reviewed, but it's right around the mark for a gaming grade panel and is 1 to 2 milliseconds quicker than VA options. And at 95Hz, all responses are well within the refresh window, so there's nothing to worry about there. This display does work as advertised. Also good to see is minimal input latency of around 3.2 milliseconds, which again is right around the mark of other gaming grade monitors. It's rare to find a gaming monitor that suffers in this department, but once again, no problems with how the PX275H performs in this regard. Where the PX275H falls away is in the standard area most budget gaming monitors struggle with, and that's color performance. Pixio has made no attempt to factory calibrate this display, so my unit arrived with a moderate green tint across the grayscale range. This throws off the CCT curve, as you can see, and when combined with incorrect gamma, leads to a high delta E average of 8.03, which is far from accurate. And then for saturation performance, an incorrect white point is mixed with an unclamped gamut to again produce a high delta E of 5.79. There's no sRGB toggle in the settings, so unless you use a software profile, you will always get oversaturation when viewing sRGB content, which is still the majority of modern imagery. That's one of the downfalls of a wide gamut gaming monitor, and it's a pretty common issue. And again, we see a high delta E average of 5.99 in color check, again due to the combination of factors. While this is a poor result out of the box, the benefit to having an IPS display is it's highly tunable and can often be corrected without much drama. In fact, with just a few OSD tweaks, I was able to achieve strong grayscale performance with a correct white point and good performance throughout the range, as seen in that sub 1.0 delta E average, which is perfectly accurate. I don't expect every PX275H to ship with a green tint, but buyers should be able to bring whatever white point they end up with back to an accurate position using either a white reference or calibration tool. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do to correct the oversaturation issue, which is why delta E's in our color tests are still above 2.0 on average. Performance here is good and will be fine for those that like a bit of unnatural vibrance to their image, but if you want accuracy, you'll need to take it further with a full calibration. And once you do that, as expected, you get perfect performance. A lot of this is down to the IPS panel to begin with. Pulling these sorts of displays back to an accurate level is often easier and more achievable than with VA or TN, at least in my experience. However, as it requires a software profile, you're left with all the usual issues like limited compatibility. As always, the profile we created is available for our Patreons, although due to panel variants, the profile won't be accurate for everyone. I should make note here though that after fixing the white point using OSD tweaks, wide gamut DCI P3 performance is very accurate, so if you are working with DCI P3 content, this is a great result. In terms of brightness, my unit peaked at 430 nits or thereabouts, although that drops somewhat after calibration. For contrast, by default we get a 10:20:1 ratio, which is bang on a typical IPS, and of course well below VA panels. This drops slightly to 9:40:1 when calibrated. However, average contrast is made up for with excellent viewing angles and a flat display, which I prefer over curved in this 27-inch form factor. Uniformity is also better than average with this monitor. The center zone is extremely uniform, much more so than most gaming monitors. However, this falls away going along the top edge. Despite this, you're getting a generally uniform image here, which you can't guarantee with VA or TN panels in particular. I'll make a brief mention of HDR support here at the end as well. It's not a major selling point of this display, but Pixio does advertise this as HDR capable, and indeed it can accept HDR inputs. But as you can see in our HDR monitor checklist, it fails 2 of the 3 key pillars for true HDR support. While sustained brightness of over 400 nits is good, peak brightness is low, and that's combined with no local dimming, so the contrast delivered by this monitor is simply too weak for proper HDR content. With that said, I don't really care about the HDR performance because we're not paying extra for HDR. It's not display HDR certified at all, and it's only a minor note on the product page. In fact, Pixio gets pretty close to delivering a good wide gamut only experience through the HDR toggle in Windows. It just falls slightly short of being properly usable, which is better than I can say for most monitors that support HDR. So you've reached the end of the video and you're here for some overall thoughts. Well, firstly, I think this is a really good concept for a budget gaming monitor. Take a high quality IPS panel with great color support, and instead of offering it at 144Hz, you shave off some of the refresh rate and offer it at 95Hz. If you're going to make a compromise to bring the price down, I think this is one of the better choices to make. Pixio's execution of this concept is generally pretty good, aside from the quality control issue with my review unit that I don't expect most buyers to run into. The only major issue I had is a standard one for entry-level gaming monitors, and that's a lack of calibration, which means it ships with poor color performance out of the box. But because it's an IPS panel, it is relatively easy to fix. Aside from that, Pixio ticks a lot of boxes: great response times and input latency, proper adaptive sync support with low frame rate compensation, excellent viewing angles, a basic yet attractive design, and the fact it's wide gamut with 95% DCI-P3 coverage is a neat bonus. The price tag as well I feel is excellent. $260 is a great position for this display to sit and allows it to be laser focused on buyers that want a gaming grade 1440p monitor but don't have $300 to $350 to spend. I still think those more expensive 144Hz options do offer enough to justify the higher price, but this new Pixio monitor is pretty much the best you can get for around $250. It is encroaching as well on the territory of your $200 1080p 144Hz monitors, so it's great to see higher resolutions really challenging those budget offerings for the first time. Unfortunately, Pixio monitors are only available in the United States, which continues to annoy me because this is the second time I've been really impressed with their offerings. But at least if other versions using this panel become available from other companies in other territories, you will know what to expect. That's it for this review. Subscribe for more monitor content, especially as we push towards the end of July, which is looking to be a big release period for many companies. Consider supporting us on Patreon for access to cool perks like our monthly live streams and Discord chat, and I'll catch you in the next one.